Billions of years ago, before life took root on Earth, another world may have held the first great promise of life in our solar system. A planet with oceans, storms, and skies that glowed with possibility. That planet was not Earth, but Mars. Today we see it as a frozen wasteland, a dusty desert painted red with rust. But its story is far more dramatic, filled with creation, destruction, oceans that vanished, and mysteries that still haunt scientists. Mars, the red planet. For centuries it has glowed in our night sky, a mysterious beacon drawing our imaginations toward it. From ancient myths of fiery gods to modern science fiction about alien civilizations, Mars has always been a mirror for humanity's hopes and fears. But behind the myth lies a real story, one written not by legends but by geology, by ice, by fire, and by time itself. This is the history of Mars, from a world that might once have been alive to the silent desert it has become. The story begins 4.5 billion years ago in the violent nursery of the early solar system. Mars was born quickly, gathering dust and rock from the swirling protoplanetary disk. Unlike Earth and Venus, which took tens of millions of years longer to mature, Mars was essentially a finished planet within the first 20 million years. Smaller than Earth, it had less gravity, making it easier to form rapidly. In those chaotic early days, the red planet may have looked more promising than Earth itself. It had time on its side, but Mars was not alone in this cosmic struggle. The newborn giant Jupiter exerted its enormous gravity across the solar system, disrupting orbits and stealing away precious building material. Mars, once a frontrunner, stalled. While Earth grew fat on rock and metal, Mars remained stunted, a half-formed world that never reached its full potential. Still, it carried with it a 50 to 100 million year head start. The race toward life had begun. The first chapter of Martian history, the Noachian period, opened around 4.1 billion years ago. By then, Mars had oceans. Yes, oceans, vast salty seas stretching across its northern hemisphere, covering regions that today look barren and dry. Thick clouds wrapped the planet in a protective blanket. Volcanoes roared, releasing greenhouse gases that kept the surface warm. Rivers carved valleys, lakes filled craters, and a hydrological cycle, rain, runoff, evaporation, may have existed. If there was ever a time for life to appear on Mars, this was it. Evidence for this ancient paradise comes from orbiters and rovers. The Perseverance rover, exploring Jezero crater, has uncovered layered sediments that could only have formed in the presence of standing water. Minerals like clays and carbonates, formed in wet conditions, dot the Martian landscape. Even meteorites blasted off the planet and found on Earth carry isotopic fingerprints pointing to a watery past. The picture is clear. Mars once had everything it needed to support life, but paradise would not last. Around 3.7 billion years ago, the Hesperian period began, and with it, catastrophe. Mars lost its magnetic field, a shield that had protected its atmosphere from the solar wind. Without it, particles streaming from the sun began stripping the air away into space. Slowly but relentlessly, the thick atmosphere thinned, pressure dropped, and the climate cooled. The oceans began to vanish, boiling off into space or freezing into ice caps. Yet this was also a time of incredible violence. Gigantic floods ripped across the surface, carving channels so vast they dwarfed the Grand Canyon. Imagine torrents of water, thousands of times greater than Earth's biggest rivers, unleashed in days or weeks, scouring valleys hundreds of kilometers wide. One such scar, the Kasai Valleys, speaks to cataclysmic events no human eye has ever witnessed. Where did this water come from? Perhaps underground aquifers, suddenly released by volcanic heat or tectonic activity. Whatever the cause, Mars was a world of chaos, drowning and drying at the same time. Volcanoes, too, were rewriting the surface. Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system, rose 21 kilometers high, nearly 3 times taller than Everest. Its caldera stretched hundreds of kilometers, large enough to engulf entire countries. For millions of years, eruptions belched lava and ash, creating temporary warmth, perhaps even local microclimates where water could linger. But the cycle was cruel. Each eruption offered hope. Then silence returned, leaving Mars colder and more desolate than before. By 2.9 billion years ago, the Amazonian period had begun. This is the age Mars still lives in today. Gone were the vast oceans and most of the rivers. The once thick air was now so thin that liquid water could not exist on the surface for long. Dust storms swept across the globe, sometimes engulfing the entire planet for months. From space, Mars looked like a world suffocating in its own despair. For decades, scientists believed the Amazonian marked the death of Mars, a frozen world, geologically dead. Its core cooled to silence, its surface a cemetery of craters. But recent discoveries have challenged that bleak vision. The InSight lander recorded over 500 Marsquakes, proof that Mars is not entirely dead inside. The core, once thought solid and cold, is layered and partly molten. Heat still flows through its veins. Even more tantalizing are signs of water that may still exist today. Radar scans of the South Pole have hinted at underground lakes buried beneath kilometers of ice. Seasonal methane releases detected in the atmosphere could, possibly, be the signature of microbial life hiding below. Nothing is confirmed yet, but the dream is alive. Maybe, just maybe, Mars is not entirely barren. And so we arrive at today, standing at the edge of discovery. Mars is a paradox. It is a graveyard of oceans and an ancient cradle of potential life, but also a planet that refuses to die completely. Its deserts whisper of lost seas, its mountains remind us of unimaginable power, and its thin air still holds secrets we are only beginning to uncover. The future of Mars is, in some ways, the future of us. Visionaries like Elon Musk imagine terraforming it, melting its polar caps, thickening its atmosphere, turning it green again. Others argue we must preserve it, study it as it is, a frozen time capsule of planetary evolution. One thing is certain, Mars will not stop haunting our imaginations. It is close enough to touch, yet distant enough to remain mysterious. Perhaps billions of years ago, Mars dreamed of life, and for a fleeting moment, it succeeded. Now it waits, silent, as humanity prepares to return the favor. The desert may not be eternal, the story of Mars is not finished.